Hey, how's it going, guys? Domino Paris 21 here, and back again with yet another deck profile for you all. So of course, what I have to present to you guys is my Revenger Phantom Blaster Abyss deck, coming straight out of Extra Booster 11 to, I guess, basically kickstart the Legion format for us English players. But yeah, Revengers get a nice little upgrade in the form of a new boss, being a Legion, of course, to be on par with the Legion format. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of great things to say about this deck. Been doing a lot of testing with it with a few friends of mine, and I actually took this to a few of my locals recently. It's been showing a lot of great results for me. So yeah, I can only expect a lot of good things to come from this deck in the tournament scene for the next few months. So easily one of the most competitive decks out there right now. So yeah, without further ado, let's actually get started. So of course, for a starter, we have easily one of the best starters in the game in Judge Bao Revenger. There are times where I kind of feel like this card can be unfair sometimes, but nonetheless, really, very powerful. So what he does, if you guys don't know, is when he boosts a unit with Phantom in its name, such as Phantom Blaster Abyss, and it hits, whether it's Vanguard or Rearguard, you counterblast 1, put him in the soul, and Superior Call up to 2 Shadow Paladin, grade 1 or less Rearguards, and you put him rested. So keep in mind that it is that he can call non-Revenger units, which what makes this card very powerful, because obviously combining him with Swordbreaker, which I do indeed play in the deck, it could lead to a nice little +3 for yourself, especially if you call double Swordbreaker, which is why I say sometimes it can feel almost unfair when playing when using that combo against your opponents. But nonetheless, it's very, very powerful. So yeah, so definitely got to play the Judge Bao in the deck. Next up for grade 3s, of course we have our 4 Phantom Blaster Abyss. So if you guys don't know what he does, is he has a Legion with Blaster Dark Revenger Abyss, and his Legion ability is during the turn that you Legion, at the end of the battle that he attacks, you counterblast 2, sacrifice 3 Revenger Rearguards, and then you stand them back up. So basically, it's kind of like a one-shot thing when it comes to the restanding ability, because you can only restand the turn you Legion. So that's kind of like one downside to the deck, which is why, you know, a lot of people like to consider him not as powerful as some of the other new boss Legions out there, such as like Thingsaver and such. But nonetheless, still very powerful. Just the fact that he's a restanding Legion, I think that's something that a lot of people tend to underrate a lot, because the fact is that since you're Legioning, you're shuffling triggers back in the deck, and of course with Shadow Paladins being how they can filter out cards from their deck too, mainly with their starter and some other key units. I mean, you're going to thin out the deck and then put triggers back in, and then you attack twice. So you're going to hit a lot of triggers on your opponents, which I usually do. So the turns I usually do go off with my Legion skill and restanding and shuffling all these triggers back and filtering out my deck throughout the game. I usually end up winning that same turn. So it's definitely a very, very powerful combination when put in that perspective. And of course, speaking of like powerful turns, I am running the 4 Mordred Phantom, so I am still playing the break rides in the deck for 2 reasons. One, like I said, since Phantom Blaster Abyss is kind of like a one-shot deal, why not just, well, give it all you can by just break riding and kind of just giving one big powerful push at your opponent, since you can only do it once anyway, unless of course you draw into another Abyss and then re-Legion again. But yeah, plus also with Mordred Phantom, he is a Phantom card, so it allows it so that Judge Bao can go off a lot more consistently game to game. So I just found it to be a lot more consistent overall to run this lineup. Another thing too is, you know, if you face, like, let's say the mirror match or any other deck like Kagura no Arakami and such, where they can actually snipe off your starter, Mordred is just really nice just to kind of toolbox into other grade 1s into your deck that maybe you didn't get a chance to with Judge Bao, so you can still you know, you can still have a way to set up your field. So that's another reason why I really like the Mordred in the deck. So just very, very consistent in general. Next up for grade 2s, of course, you have your 4 Blaster Dark Revenger Abyss. Really, really love this card just because now Shadow Paladins have a way to snipe off boosters and starters, because what he does is when you place them on Rearguard Circle, counterblast 1, you retire a grade 1 or lower Rearguard on your opponent's field. So really, really love this card just because now I have a way to, you know, snipe off starters I don't like my opponents having, such as, well, Judge Bao if I face the mirror match, and just being able to snipe off boosters is really huge for the deck, I feel. And of course, obviously, he's the Legion mate for Abyss, and really like the artwork for this. You know, it's really cool on the art. So it looks like they really went all out in designing it. So yeah, and next up we have your 4 Blaster Dark Revenger. So he still is very viable in the deck, mainly for his combination with Doran still, just to be able to unflip damage, which is very crucial, because one thing that makes this deck different as opposed to, I guess, the more similar deck before this, Raging Form Dragon, is that Raging Form Dragon does not require Counterblast to use his ability. So your Counterblast pretty much has free reign for all your other units in the deck to, I guess, basically set up your field and maybe even using BDR. But now your Counterblast is prioritized to your boss unit, so you're very Counterblast reliant. So it's very important to just being able to have access to unflip damage. So it's very important. And next, of course, you have your 3, Makart. So Makart, of course, is a newly introduced card, excuse me, from Extra Booster 11. He's actually the mate for Cormac, which obviously I don't play Cormac in the deck, but Makart's very important for the deck. So what he does is, while he's on the rearguard circle, when you perform Legion, you can superior call 1 grade 1 or lower Revenger from your deck and rest a position on your field. So he's a very important card. Obviously, to get a nice +1 for yourself, to give you some fodder for your Phantom Blaster Abyss, and he doesn't cost Counterblast. But most importantly, especially the fact is I am running Swordbreaker in the deck. So basically, let's say after I use Judge Bow, I usually like to call 1 or 2 Swordbreakers, but I usually always put 1 Swordbreaker behind my Vanguard. So obviously Swordbreaker is not a Revenger, so obviously you can get finicky when you can't obviously sacrifice it for Phantom Blaster Abyss. So that's where Makart comes in, because he can then just replace the Swordbreaker behind the Vanguard when you perform the Legion. And since Makart is free anyway, and Swordbreaker gives you a +1 anyway, you're not really losing anything out of it. So in the end, you're still gaining a +1, and Makart just allows you to filter another card out of your deck and just help set up your field for your push with Abyss. So definitely a really strong card in the deck. So yeah, that's it for grade 2s. Next, for grade 1s, we have, of course, just your 4 Perfect Guards. I really don't recommend Quintet Walls in the deck, just because, one, like I said, the deck is very Counterblast reliant, just because you need it for your boss, and mainly even your Blaster Dark Abyss as well. But also too, you know, usually you run Quintet Walls in Legion decks where you're trying to like maybe perform the Legion and take advantage of the skill like turn 3 or turn 4. But for this deck, since like I said, since it's a very one-shot deal, you kind of want to wait till later in the game to do it anyway. So I think the Quintet Walls are really unnecessary in the deck, so just run the 4 Perfects. It's a lot more consistent. And then of course you have your 4 Doran. For the obvious reason of comboing with the Blaster Dark Revenger, like I said, just to be sure you can get that damage unflip, because it's very crucial for this deck. Then you have your 4 Masquerade. He's actually a very important card in the deck, just for the fact is that he hits for 10, which, I mean, it's usually a mediocre number for the most part, but as you notice with my grade 2 lineup, I don't run Masquerade, which is a 12k attacker, just because now with like a lot of Legion decks, functionality is a lot more prioritized than just power cards, so there really wasn't any room to run Masquerade. So you just need to have access to good beaters in the deck, especially that 10k, because the fact is I am running Swordbreaker in the deck at 2. It allows it so that he can, you know, still hit for that 16 number, which is still a very magic number against other Legion decks, because seeing that all my grade 2s are 9Ks, it can sometimes be a little tough trying to hit some good numbers. So definitely Masquerade is very important. And of course Swordbreaker at 2. Like I was explaining with the combination of Judge Bow, there were plenty of times where I didn't even get my Legion off. I kind of just sat on Mordred Phantom, and I got off Judge Bow, went double Swordbreaker, drew a bunch of cards, and I essentially was able just to win that way, just because I built so much advantage just doing just that. And of course, I mean, building up advantage early in the game like that, and then following up with Abyss later on can usually is what really leads this deck to a lot of wins. So definitely I say Swordbreaker is a must in the deck. And like I say, you know, in case Judge Bow does get sniped off, that's where Mordred can come in, because at least you have Mordred to kind of, you can even fish out a Swordbreaker sometimes. and still get a +1. So it's usually not the end of the world if someone snipes off your Judge Bow, because I have a few friends that actually don't play Swordbreaker for that reason. But like I said, as long as you're playing the Break Ride in the deck still, you still have options for you. So still very amazing in the deck nonetheless. And last but not least, for my triggers, you have just your 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. I know some people like to try out 12 crits in the deck, but I still like draw triggers, because although, like I said, Judge Bow does give you some nice pluses in the deck, he can be reliable sometimes just because he can get sniped off and such. So draw triggers are still nice just to still have a way to just get some nice +1s for the obvious reasons that draws give you, but it also gives you more opportunities to maybe draw into another Abyss, so you can like do an extra Legion and such. So I still like draw triggers in the deck, because I don't know, I just don't like 12 crits personally for this deck. I still like the draws, so yeah, simple as that. You can still run 12 crits in the deck, but it's really just your preference, but either or is fine. But yeah guys, simple as that. Like I said, this deck is not the most exciting deck and such. I'm not really doing anything crazy or innovative with it, but what's important is that it just works consistently, which is really all I can expect from any of my competitive decks in Vanguard. So yeah, as always guys, feel free to leave a comment down below with any questions and such that you have, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Definitely well appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe if you hadn't. Well, on that guys, thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you guys later.